Welcome to Movie Reviews YT, your go-to channel for deep dive recaps, twisted plot breakdowns, and the most intense horror, sci-fi, and thriller analyses on YouTube. If you love gripping stories, shocking moments, and cinematic insights, you're in the right place. Now let's get into it. Today we're breaking down one of the most brutal and unexpected horror reimaginings in recent years, Popeye the Slayer Man. And trust me, this is nothing like the sailor you grew up watching. At the start of the movie, we see a girl named Adrian who has stolen drugs from two drug dealers and is now on the run. The two dealers are chasing her, and while running, she reaches an old factory that has been shut down for years. Something terrible happened there in the past, making people believe the factory is haunted, and no one dares to go near it. However, Adrian, desperate to save her life, somehow breaks the lock and enters the factory. The name of the factory is Anchor Bay Canning, where spinach was once canned. Meanwhile, the two thugs also enter the factory, though one of them is visibly scared, but he follows the other one anyway. What they don't know is that Popeye is already inside, waiting for them. After some chasing, Adrian gets caught by them, but suddenly an empty spinach can rolls out of the darkness, because Popeye was eating it. One of the thugs, standing in the dark, tries to scare Popeye, warning him to leave if he values his life. However, instead of getting scared, Popeye pulls the thug into the darkness and brutally rips him apart, showing his incredible strength. Seeing this, the second thug holds a knife to Adrian's neck, trying to save himself. But that doesn't work either. Popeye merely grabs his hand and twists it, breaking it instantly. Then with a single powerful blow, he crushes the thug's head like a watermelon. After saving Adrian's life, she calls Popeye a monster. In response, Popeye simply says, his dialogue is left open here. Then he charges at Adrian as well, and as her screams echo, the title card appears on the screen. From this brutal opening, it is clear that the movie is going to be extremely violent and full of gore. Next, we are introduced to a college student named Dexter, who plans to visit the same factory that night to make a documentary on the legend of the Sailor Man. In other words, Popeye. He asked for help from Olivia, whom he likes but hasn't confessed to yet. Along with Dexter, three more friends, Lisa, Seth, and Katie, will also be joining the adventure. Meanwhile, we see the factory's owner, Lex, and Margot, who is handling the deal to sell the factory. The buyer plans to demolish the factory and build something new in its place, which doesn't bother Lex since the place has been shut for 20 years. At least now he will get some money out of it. Back to the story. Margot wants to clarify some rumors about the factory before finalizing the deal. There was a contamination report 20 years ago, after which the factory was shut down. If the report was false, as Lex claims, then why wasn't the factory reopened? Is it really haunted? Is the urban legend of the Sailor Man real? While discussing this, they suddenly smell pipe smoke, Popeye's signature sign. After he leaves, Margot feels an eerie sensation, as if someone is watching her. Heavy noises start echoing, making her hide in fear. Suddenly, someone walks towards her. Without looking, Margot shoves them away and runs, only to find out that it was Lex, who tells her that it was just Anchor, the security guard. Though Margot picks up her belongings and leaves, she forgets the important documents inside the factory. Meanwhile, Lex instructs Anchor to clean the factory thoroughly and remove any intruders because the deal is about to be finalized. Confident and muscular, Anchor doesn't fear anything as he roams the factory. However, he soon discovers the mutilated corpses of the two thugs. Just as fear sets in, Popeye appears in front of him, his massive forearms ready for a fight. Anchor attempts to attack Popeye, but his strength is nothing in comparison. With just two punches, Popeye knocks him down, and with a single powerful kick, he crushes Anchor's skull into pieces. Meanwhile, Olivia and Dexter went to the bar to pick up Katie, who worked there. At the same time, the bartender was throwing out a man. The trio was discussing the legend of the Sailor Man when Katie dismissed it as nonsense. But then, an old man sitting at the bar interrupted, warning them to stay away from the factory, or they would die. He said the Sailor Man was still there, waiting for his lost love to return. But as it happens in slasher movies, young people never take the warning seriously, and they end up getting killed one by one. Just then, Katie's abusive ex showed up at the bar. Meanwhile, Olivia glanced at the window and saw Popeye standing outside, staring at her. But in the blink of an eye, he disappeared. Later, the group reached the factory, only to find that the door was locked. They were wondering how to break in, but they didn't have to, because Olivia picked the lock in an instant. She seemed skilled in such things. But the real question was, who had locked the factory from the outside? Lex and Margot had already left, and Angus was dead inside. So who did it? Since Popeye was still inside, the answer had to be found. As soon as they entered, Katie received a call from Joey, but instead of answering, she ignored it, making Joey even more anxious. His friends fueled his suspicion, saying they needed to catch Katie and Dexter red-handed. So Joey and his friends set out for the factory. Meanwhile, the five inside made the worst possible decision in a haunted place. They split up. Lisa and Seth went one way, while Olivia and Dexter took another. Katie stayed back to monitor the cameras. Lisa and Seth found empty spinach cans scattered around and started tossing them. But each time, the cans rolled back to them. This made the legend of the Sailor Man feel real. However, they later realized that pigeons were knocking the cans around, which gave them a sigh of relief. But their relief was short-lived, because Popeye was calmly smoking his pipe and following them. Meanwhile, Olivia and Dexter wandered through the factory and unknowingly exited through a hidden passage, revealing that it was Popeye who had locked the main entrance from the outside. He wanted to keep intruders out, but these kids had found another way in. Dexter was setting up cameras, but Katie wasn't paying attention to the monitors. Otherwise, she would have already seen Popeye lurking around. Just then, Margot returned to retrieve the important papers. She found them, but along with them, she also found Angus's mangled corpse, making her panic. Before she could react, Popeye appeared. She tried to escape and managed to hide in a room, but at the last moment, a few strands of her hair got caught in Popeye's grip. And with Popeye's strength, a slight pull was enough to rip off her entire scalp. Now there was no escaping. Popeye grabbed her, threw her into a machine, and crushed her body into a pulp. Meanwhile, Olivia and Dexter found an office inside the factory. Their conversation revealed that Olivia had left town years ago, but had suddenly returned. This raised suspicions. In the office, they found a locked drawer. But since Olivia was skilled at picking locks, she easily broke it open and found some hidden files. Inside, they discovered the original contamination report that had never been made public. The spinach packed in this factory was contaminated. It was infested with bacteria and was no longer safe for consumption. But this news was never published because Lex owned most of the town and controlled the media. He had buried the truth. Now Dexter believed he could expose everything. Just as things were heating up between Dexter and Olivia, Lisa and Seth joined them. The group then came across a poem written on the walls about Popeye, meant to scare children away from the factory. The poem warned, "If you smell the smoke, beware. The Sailor Man is lurking there." The spinach cans were meant for Popeye, the Sailor Man, and Popeye had already reached Katie. He was calmly watching everything on the monitors. As soon as Katie saw him, she screamed in fear. It was now confirmed that the old man at the bar was telling the truth. Katie quickly ran away and bumped straight into Joey, who was in his own zone, and ended up breaking her phone. Just then, Popeye's face came into view, and Joey immediately stabbed a knife into Popeye's chest, but it had no effect on him. In return, Popeye gouged out both of Joey's eyes and twisted his neck, ending him instantly. Terry was about to shoot, but he met the same fate as the knife-wielding thug. Popeye grabbed his hand, twisted it slightly, and broke it. Terrified, Terry turned and ran, with Joey right behind him, leaving Katie to die. However, Popeye didn't harm Katie and instead left her there. By then, Terry had locked the factory door from the outside and sat in his car. But no matter how hard he pressed the accelerator, the car wouldn't move, because Popeye was holding it from behind. Seeing this, Terry fled once more. While running, he stepped on a large nail that pierced through his foot. Somehow he pulled it out and reached the dock, only for Popeye to appear behind him with an anchor. With a single swing, Popeye hanged Terry by his neck. It was brutal, but he didn't stop there until Terry's head was completely severed. Meanwhile, Joey, armed with a gun, was searching for a way out when someone approached him. Without thinking, he fired the gun and ended up shooting Katie. By then, Popeye had also arrived, so Joey abandoned Katie once again and ran. Hearing Katie's screams, the others became alert and began searching for her, splitting up to do so. After seeing the corpses, Seth and Lisa decided they needed to escape and call the police. But how? The main door was locked from the outside, and they didn't know about the other exit. On top of that, Popeye wasn't holding back in scaring them. Terrified, they ran toward the roof. But during the attempt, Seth slipped and fell. Though he wasn't badly injured, his leg got caught in a net. As he struggled to free himself, he unknowingly dislodged some objects above him. They fell straight down, impaling him, killing him in front of Lisa. Horrified, Lisa tried to escape, but Popeye appeared again. Panicked, she turned back, only to lose her footing and fall directly onto Seth's corpse, bringing them together in the end. Meanwhile, Olivia and Dexter had reached Popeye's room, where they found his real photos, along with pictures of his wife and daughter. There were also toys, including a Winnie the Pooh plush. As they examined newspaper clippings, they learned that Popeye's wife, Olive Oil, used to work at the factory. She was the one who leaked the contaminated product scandal, which led to the factory's shutdown. After that, she went missing, likely kidnapped or killed by Lex. Popeye, however, was still searching for her, surviving by eating the contaminated spinach, which had mutated and deformed him. Realizing this, Olivia and Dexter rushed to find Lisa and Seth, but they only found their lifeless bodies. They decided to escape through Popeye's exit, but Popeye caught Dexter, lifted him in the air, and broke his hand. He was about to do something even worse when Olivia intervened and told him to stop. Popeye listened, because Olivia was his daughter, Olive's child. Olivia had returned to the factory to support her father and find her mother. Just as the father and daughter were about to embrace, Joey ruined the moment by shooting Popeye. Enraged, Popeye threw him across the room. But Joey didn't stop. He attacked Olivia, for which he suffered a brutal punishment. Popeye tore off his arm and used it to beat him to death. By then, Olivia and Dexter had escaped. Outside, they found Katie, who was still alive. The police arrived and Olivia gave them a different story, blaming everything on a crazed man who had escaped. Inside, Popeye was watching them, knowing Olivia would return to him. This hinted at a possible sequel. Later, Lex foolishly entered the factory again, unaware that the deal was already off. That was his mistake, because Popeye delivered his signature line, "I yam what I yam," and flattened him completely. With that, the movie ended. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want more horror, more thrillers, and more twisted storytelling dissected in style, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. New videos drop every week, and trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. This is Movie Reviews YT, where movies get real.